Today we're doing something a little different. We're stepping away from those huge, abstract disasters, and we're zeroing in on a place that we all think is safe, a place we take for granted, the kitchen.
Yeah.
We're diving into a collection of, some intensely detailed sources about accidents that were very localized, but just utterly catastrophic. That's exactly right. And our mission today is pretty specific. We so often focus on the big public tragedies, but these sources show is a really terrifying pattern that some of the deadliest environments are actually the most mundane ones. We want to understand the specific safety failures, not just the shocking headlines, to really see where the hidden risks are. And what really stands out in this collection is that it's never just one thing that goes wrong. Precisely. And if we frame this whole discussion, the common thread here, it's not bad luck, it's not random fate, it's the cumulative effect of preventable systemic failures. You have broken safety features, warnings that were just ignored, and some really fundamental errors in how risk was assessed. So when all these little things line up, the outcome is devastating. Okay, let's get into it. Segment 1, explosive failures. These are the incidents caused by, well, things like pressure and materials you can't even see. Things that result in this immediate catastrophic force. Right, often from just simple household utilities. We have to start with the 2014 gas stove incident in East Harlem, New York. What happened there? It really illustrates the terrifying power of an invisible threat. A crack in a gas line somewhere underground led to this quiet buildup of natural gas, and crucially, this wasn't a surprise. No, that's the key. Residents had been complaining about the smell of gas for days, so this failure to simply repair a known leak became the first fatal flaw in the system. That initial failure it decked the stage. The sources we have pinpoint the moment of ignition at exactly 9:31 in the morning. The gas had been filling this 5-story building for hours, and then it finds a spark. It could have been anything, right? A refrigerator kicking on, a stove pilot, exactly. Yeah. And the reaction was just explosive. People ask, is a household gas leak really strong enough to cause a structural collapse? Yeah, he wouldn't think so, but absolutely. The gas fills every single cavity in the walls, under the floors. When it ignites, the blast wave is contained by the building itself, which just magnifies the pressure exponentially. Wow, it didn't just start a fire. The force literally collapsed a huge part of 2 adjacent buildings, and the human cost was just profound. 8 people were killed and more than 70 were injured. It's just so hard to imagine that level of destruction coming from a broken pipe. What's fascinating here, in a grim way, is that the disaster wasn't just a physical explosion, it was a failure of the system. A failure of institutional monitoring, right? A crack in a pipe that went unfixed became the trigger for mass casualties because the system designed to respond to those warnings, it just broke down. And speaking of internal pressure building up to a catastrophic failure, we have the pressure cooker incident. This was in Florida, 2017. These are tools designed to speed up cooking, but they rely completely on a system of redundant safety features to handle this immense internal steam pressure. And in this case, in this tragic case, that mechanical safety, it failed. The valve that's meant to release excess steam, or the lock that's supposed to stop you from opening the lid under pressure, one of them was defective. So the pressure just kept building higher and higher inside a completely sealed pot. The outcome, it's just awful. The sources describe the lid blasting off with immense concussive force, like a bomb. It shot across the kitchen and struck a young child in the head. She died the next day. Neighbors said the sound was so sharp they thought it was a gunshot. And here's where we move from just a horrible anecdote to systemic insight, right? This wasn't some freak accident. These incidents led to major lawsuits against the manufacturers. And the lawsuits focus on defective valves, faulty seals, or materials that just degraded way faster than they should have. The core issue wasn't the user. It was a known design flaw. So the safety feature was basically doomed to fail. The failure was baked into the design, or at least into the quality control. There was no margin for error. Okay, so if invisible gas and household gadgets are a threat at home, that threat just scales up exponentially when we move to segment 2, commercial kitchens. Oh, absolutely. Here you have industrial-grade equipment, and the dangers are often compounded by, lapses in maintenance and worker training. Commercial kitchens are hectic. They're demanding places. You're talking about equipment with massive heating elements, powerful motors, and they're always wet, always slick with grease and water. They're inherently more dangerous. Much higher risk level, yes. The deep fryer incident in Enid, Oklahoma in 2016. It perfectly illustrates that combination of environmental and equipment failure. So the scene is, it's late, they're doing cleanup, but the oil in the fryer is still over 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And the environment itself, it was a death trap. The floor was slick with grease and water, which is a known, inevitable hazard in a kitchen. Yeah. A 26-year-old worker slipped and fell directly into that vat of scorching oil. It is just a horrifying scenario. I mean, her coworkers pulled her out, but the burns were catastrophic. They covered more than half her body. She died shortly after. Yeah. So what did the investigators find that makes this less of a tragic slip and more of a systemic failure? They found two massive points of negligence. First, no anti-slip mats on the floor. That's a basic safety requirement. Basic, yeah. Second, and this is crucial, there were no guardrails or barriers around that vat of superheated oil. This is a complete failure in the most basic hierarchy of hazard control. You're supposed to engineer a safeguard between the worker and the deadly equipment. So that lack of a simple guardrail turned a simple slip into a fatal incident. We see a terrifyingly similar pattern with electricity. This one was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, 2019. Involved a 32-year-old employee clearing a commercial electric deep fryer. Here the hazard was, it was more insidious. These fryers are complex electrically. And over time, grease and water had leaked into the wiring. Right. That damaged the protective covers, and critically, it compromised the internal wiring. But the machine was still being used every single day. As the worker was cleaning it, he touched a metal part that had become energized. The sources say thousands of volts went through his body instantly. Instant cardiac arrest. This wasn't a static shock. This was lethal voltage. So this raises the question, why was equipment with exposed wires and I'm quoting here, no proper ground connection, why was it still in use? Exactly. I mean, grounding is your last crucial line of defense in an electrical system. Without it, the current is looking for the easiest path to the earth, and it finds the worker. It traveled directly through the worker's body. In a wet, metal-heavy environment like a kitchen, electricity spreads so fast, and a lack of grounding guarantees that the current will choose the human body as its path. It's just a profound example of maintenance negligence. And finally, under commercial settings, we have to look at the tragic mixer incident in New Jersey from 2001. This one highlights the risks to the most vulnerable workers. This involved a 15-year-old worker. He had just recently arrived from Guatemala and he was improperly trained to clean a huge, powerful dough mixer. These machines have tremendous torque, right? Unbelievable torque and velocity, yeah? And this incident was just a perfect storm of regulatory failure. The machine had two core defects. First, the safety cover was broken off, okay? Second, young man was trying to scrape out dough while the machine was still running. A clear violation of what's called lockout tagout protocol, which means the machine must be completely shut off and the power source locked before anyone does cleaning or maintenance. He reached inside, the running machine caught his arm, and it pulled him in. Oh no. The injuries were catastrophic, immediate. His coworkers had to partially dismantle the machine just to free his body. OSHA investigators found multiple severe violations. Machine guarding, the training. It was all non-existent for this minor employee. That mix of poor training, broken equipment, and no supervision. It just created a deadly systemic trap, indeed. Which brings us to segment 3, the unexpected traps. These are incidents where isolation, or, ironically, a natural panic reaction to danger, proved fatal. The walk-in freezer incident in Boston from 2019 is such a chilling example of this. A 61-year-old worker went into the freezer, which operates well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, just to check supplies. And walk-in freezers are designed with a critical redundancy. The door is this heavy sealed thing, but there has to be an internal release handle. It's a life-saving device. But in this case, the safety handle was broken. It sealed her inside. Trapped for hours in temperatures that cause rapid hypothermia, your body just starts to shut down. Fingers go numb, your core temperature drops, and because the kitchen was so busy, nobody noticed she was missing. They found her collapsed hours later. She had died from the cold. The stark takeaway there is that the single point of failure was just basic maintenance of a safety device. The lack of a simple inspection on that internal latch turned a routine task into a death by exposure. It's brutal. Now, let's pivot from extreme cold to extreme heat, but with a crucial difference, a fatal human reaction. This is the grease fire incident in Cedar Hill, Texas in 2014. This happened during holiday cooking. Oil overheated on the stove and ignited. And when cooking oil catches fire, the flames can spread explosively fast, especially up into the cabinets. So the immediate natural instinct is to get the danger out of the house, and that instinct proved fatal. The woman in the house grabbed the pot of burning oil, intending to carry it outside. The second she lifted it, the burning liquid sloshed and splashed all over her arms and chest, instantly igniting her clothes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a clear-cut case where your gut instinct is the exact opposite of safety protocol. Yeah, fire officials use this tragedy as a severe public warning. Never, ever move a pot of burning oil and never throw water on it. That just makes it explode into a fireball. So what's the right move? The only safe thing to do is smother it. Yeah, cut off the oxygen with a heavy metal lid or a proper fire extinguisher. Her reaction, while completely understandable and panic, unfortunately guaranteed a fatal outcome. Okay, let's unpack all this. From a faulty gas line that killed 8 people to a broken freezer handle, these deep dives show that catastrophic failure is almost never sudden bad luck. No, it's the predictable consequence of neglected maintenance and ignored warnings. What's really fascinating here is how often the victim was interacting with the system. A pressure cooker, a commercial fryer, a building's utility line that was known, or at least should have been known, to be compromised. These weren't black swan events, they were accidents, just waiting for the right moment to happen. Knowledge of how these safety systems work and the diligence to maintain them. That's the ultimate power in preventing these kinds of localized catastrophes. We've seen tragic incidents from extreme heat, pressure, or cold, electric shock, all in the context of cooking. We've seen the failure mechanisms. No electrical grounding, no valve redundancy, no machine guarding. It really is a sobering look at environments we just take for granted every single day. So to leave you with a final thought, we've spent this time identifying how the cumulative failure of small, overlooked defects turned a normal routine into a crisis. Think about your own kitchen, or your workplace, or even your car right now. What safety feature in your life that you implicitly trust might be silently broken, waiting for a moment of high pressure or panic to fail completely? What system redundancy have you maybe decided to ignore?